So it's very apparent that she knows what's going on. I mean, she's calling tenants by first names. Hey, how's your baby doing? Hey, this guy's not going to be home for another 30 minutes because you always know, you can hear him coming up the stairs. Like that level of detail and just knowledge of, let's call it what it is, her apartment building. If you,
right.
You know what I mean? So it becomes very apparent that she's the property manager. There's another property management company, but she gets subsidized rent because of everything that she does. So I'm walking out of there, and I'm kind of like, damn, I feel like the right thing to do is to really call the potential buyer and let them know, like, hey, it's not in my best interest to say this, but we need to work with Vicky now. And that's most likely going to mean discounting our cost. But I'm the fool if I think that I'm going to go in there and be able to just replace 17 years of knowledge and respect that this lady has from the tenants and for the apartment building. So I literally have to make that call, and I'm going to let her know, hey, how can we do this with Vicky in the house, even though we're going to have to substantially discount and maybe even do more of an a la carte style where, there's some things that Vicky just can't do. But, I mean, she's the property manager. Like, why wouldn't we want to work with her? And so saying all that to say is it's kind of unique where I'm sure a lot of people, there's always good guys out there, but a lot of people would just discredit Vicky and say, hey, we're going to come in and we're the new property management now. And that would be a tornado probably. So why not work with Vicky? And now Vicky wins because she clearly takes pride in her home. Mm-hmm. And when I say her home is those 30 units. The owner is going to get discounted property management, a superior level of knowledge and care of her property, and Monument gets to still continue to manage, and we're doing the right thing. And that's what it's all about, in my opinion.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of the Byron Thompson series on Sirculate. I am your host and producer, Gary Martin. Really enjoyed this episode with Byron. We touched on a lot of different topics, ranging from his understanding and new understanding of trusting his team to make decisions that he was at the point where he removed himself from, how good those decisions worked out in his business recently. We speak on a few specifics in that realm. We talk about him applying integrity to a situation where he was looking at a 30-unit building and the live-in property manager was doing such a great job that the right thing to do was to have that person be a part of any solution that he was going to provide his new client. We touch on some ways he would like to improve his business. Byron talks about how he's getting to the point where he's at the point where he wants it to be less about how much money he can make, but what kind of impact he can have on people, as well as the property management business as a whole. We talk about the beauty of service. And then towards the end, I draw some parallels between Rich, Tiffany, Byron, and myself to kind of close out the episode. Enjoy. Yeah, man. So the last episode, Byron, we talked about the core competencies of real estate, which are, can you remind the people again?
Leasing, maintenance, and collections.
Right. Then we also touched on your kind of philosophy and art you have about getting new tenants, given the inner city property management focus that you have, kind of how it's also the art and philosophy you have behind that, which we received some positive feedback on, and people were interested in like the story and philosophy. Can you talk about one of the things that's been happening lately that we've discussed a few times is this process of onboarding, which you touched on briefly in the last episode. Can you talk about how, since you've grown, you've noticed the importance of focusing on onboarding and learning, and you've learned more and more about how to do it
in terms of onboarding
new investors? So if an investor has 20 homes, 100 homes, being able to onboard their portfolio, what you've learned and how that's going, and the process of not being great at it, getting better at it.
Yeah, and fortunately, I can talk about it from the sidelines, so to speak, because we have such a wonderful COO. Her name is Tasia, and I will be the first to admit that, one of my weaknesses is that I am not a great operator. And policies and procedures and logistics is not my strong suit. And when it comes to Tasia, she's phenomenal. So everything that I'll tell you is something that, is stuff that she's been able to implement for our company. But, essentially how it goes is a new owner will come to us with one home or, like you said, several homes. And it's still all the same. Most of the time they want to know, how we operate. They're all over the board in terms of, their level of acumen or savvy in terms of urban real estate investing. But basically, they're going to have questions about how we, our policies and procedures, which, someone like myself or our owner liaison will answer. And then it's just a matter of, making sure that the tenant, if there's already a tenant in place, that they're on, we communicate with them, making sure utilities and everything. So there's definitely a process, but it's more about the tenant than the actual owner or client. And what I mean by that is making sure, like we just said, it's something that you probably wouldn't even, it sounds trivial, but does the tenant have an email address? Do they have a phone number? If they don't have, you got to reach out to them and make sure that they understand that there's new management. And a lot of times the owner will play a part in that, because imagine if you're a tenant and someone just shows up at your doorstep and says, hey, we're here to collect your rent this month. There's a new property management. Obviously, you probably get the door shut in your face. But that's what it is. I'm sure I didn't really answer your question too much, but it's more about getting the tenant information, inputting, data input, and then just, again, here's where the art comes in, just taking the extra step to talk to the tenant, let them know that no one's going to be putting them out of their home. That's everybody's first fear when they hear that the house has been sold. And then just following through with everything. And I think because of the software and the technology that we use, I think it actually makes people feel, it may come off a little intimidating at first, but I think it makes them feel more secure that, we are a professional property management company.
What is the breakdown between the people you have to literally go to the homes and collect rent and people who pay online, or is it an option to pay online?
It's funny you said that. I was just looking. It's like 95% of our tenants pay online. This was something, this goes back to probably our first talk that we had, where you really sometimes have to step back as the leader of the company and empower your team to make decisions. So way back in the day.
You mean a year ago?
Yeah. A year ago, we had all of our tenants taking money to the bank. So that's fine for 10 homes, 25 homes, 30 homes. You're getting all these deposits in the bank, and that's, because of our demographic of people, we use Huntington Bank. There are tons of Huntington banks in Northeast Ohio. So it worked out great. That's how I was doing it with my own personal homes, and everything's fine, right? And then you keep growing, and now you've got dozens and dozens of $500 payments in your account that you can't reconcile because you don't know who put, people didn't always put their names down and all that stuff. So Tasia, COO, smart person, said, Byron, we got to change this. Let's implement, something that we already have at our fingertips, which is the online payment process. And I was like, there's no way everybody's going to do that. We're going to fail miserably. Went flawlessly. And
95% now.
95%. So, we do have some people that we've kind of grandfathered in where they can still, send money to a P.O. box. But for the most part, it's 2018. Everybody has, a smartphone. Everybody has, an online capabilities to make payments. And then, Appfolio, the software that we use is so great because they've taken it a step further and they understand the wide demographic of, companies and tenants and clients that they serve. So tenants can go to an Ace Cash or a 7-Eleven and literally on their phone, imagine something like a barcode that comes up and they're literally able to pay their rent that way. So,
wow.
Yeah. So saying all that to say is, one, again, listen to your team, especially the people that are on the ground. And two, don't embrace change and don't be afraid of it and try it. And especially, when you have the technology to support it.
And that's a big lesson. So it sounds like it didn't take long to make that transition either.
What, in terms of, no, I'm not even joking. This happened like we did a great job of letting the tenants know. So I think we gave them a good 30, it was either 30 days or 3 months. I'm sorry, I can't remember. I think it was more than 30 days. So I think it was 3 months that we sent out letters, sent out emails, because we knew, you can't make an abrupt change. But it honestly, of all the things that go wrong each and every day and, in every year in a business, that was one of our proud moments where it went off almost flawlessly.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you said earlier about onboarding people. It's honestly about talking to the tenants, and it's really about getting them to understand what it is that's going to be happening and what is changing. Are there any instances where you need to really help out the investor as well a lot?
In terms of
when they're switching over to you from another property manager. So are there any ways that you do things that are different than other property managers for the investor?
Yeah, and again, I say this because I want you always run the risk of sounding arrogant or thinking that you're you can't be touched or anything like that. But again, Gary, one of the things that I'm very proud of with our company is our professionalism and just kind of the level of attention that we give to everything. Mm-hmm. So, again, it's a lot of it has to do with this demographic, but a lot of people aren't used to, having, when I say the people, a lot of the clients aren't used to, having a property management company that really cares. And I've said that before, and I'll say it again. It just comes down to really caring and over communicating. And for the tenant, it really comes down to, like I said, some tenants are used to the landlord coming up and picking their rent up, literally knocking on their door. So what does it look like when you don't have that and you just literally have an email that says, hey, your rent is due, and if you don't pay, then, there's just an entire policy and procedure and process put in place that most, or I should say a lot of property management companies, urban property management companies don't have. And actually, scratch that. Not just urban property management companies don't have put in place. Right.
Now you talk about caring, and you told me a story today about a unit that apartment building that you were about to manage today, and you learned a few things. If you're listening right now, that's Byron's son crying in the background.
So unprofessional.
He's how many months is Kai?
5 months.
5 months. So excuse me. The way Sirculate works is that we have to execute.
It's family friendly.
No matter what, family friendly. But yeah, so if you could touch on just what you talked to me about today when it came to the apartment building.
I'm sorry. Let him know that he's 2 floors up.
Yeah, we're in the basement. That is true. We're in the basement. He's like 2 floors up. We can still hear him.
Oh, God.
Maybe he'll be a singer.
Yeah. So what happened today? Basically, hopefully it speaks to the integrity that we have. So, most of the properties that we manage are residential homes, 1 to 4 units. We have an opportunity, and we're about to start managing a 30-unit apartment complex in the city of Cleveland, and it's still in a C area. So I go to the purchaser of the property is out of state. They asked me to go there. We're starting to just wanted to get an idea of things that need to be repaired and what have you. And so we go there today, and we're met with a woman named Vicky who has been living in that property for 17 years. And Vicky greets us at the door with like a board with all these keys on it, literally like 30 different keys on it. And she's like, hey, I'm here to show you guys around. So as we're going through literally went through every apartment today. So obviously we spent, a good number of hours there and, we're talking to Vicky, and it's like, yeah, how do they get tenants? Well, yeah, when I talk to them, we're like, you talk to them? Well, yeah, I screen them and I make sure that, the right person is here, and okay. And as we're talking to the tenants, it's, hey, Miss Vicky, this, I need, this maintenance need taken care of, or hey, did this ever? So it's very apparent that she knows what's going on. I mean, she's calling tenants by first names. Hey, how's your baby doing? Hey, this guy's not going to be home for another 30 minutes because you always know, you can hear him coming up the stairs. Like that level of detail and just knowledge of, let's call it what it is, her apartment building. If you,
right.
You know what I mean? So it becomes very apparent that she's the property manager. There's another property management company, but she gets subsidized rent because of everything that she does. So I'm walking out of there, and I'm kind of like, damn. I feel like the right thing to do is to really call the potential buyer and let them know, like, hey, it's not in my best interest to say this, but we need to work with Vicky now. And that's most likely going to mean discounting our cost. But I'm the fool if I think that I'm going to go in there and be able to just replace 17 years of knowledge and respect that this lady has from the tenants and for the apartment building. So I literally have to make that call, and I'm going to let her know, hey, how can we do this with Vicky in the house, even though we're going to have to substantially discount and maybe even do more of an a la carte style where, there's some things that Vicky just can't do. But, I mean, she's the property manager. Like, why wouldn't we want to work with her? And so saying all that to say is it's kind of unique where I'm sure a lot of people, there's always good guys out there, but a lot of people would just discredit Vicky and say, hey, we're going to come in and we're the new property management now. And that would be a tornado probably. So why not work with Vicky? And now Vicky wins because she clearly takes pride in her home. Mm-hmm. And when I say her home is those 30 units. The owner is going to get discounted property management, a superior level of knowledge and care of her property. And Monument gets to still continue to manage, and we're doing the right thing. And that's what it's all about, in my opinion.
What would you attribute that level of awareness and like consciousness to?
Great question, man. That's just not to shameless. I'm shamelessly stealing a line, but because of this family of Sirculate, in the wise words of one of Rich Clark's story, that's what we ought to be doing, Gary. I'm stealing that one because that's literally what I thought. That's what this is what is going to make this situation work. And that's what it's about, at least for me, is, I love the problem solving aspect that comes with just property management in general, but it's what we ought to be doing. You could not have walked away from there thinking that you cannot or should not work with this woman with all this knowledge. And I don't know. So honestly, I wish I had a more charismatic answer, but the first thing that came to mind is, so we ought to just I literally walked out the door thinking oh God, who am I? I'm going to tell, because I was bragging on the way over there, we got 31 units. We're going to, we're going to kill this one. And it's and we still are going to help manage it, but just on a different level.
But you walked away saying, we're going to have to give some of this money that we could be making away to this lady because it's what we ought to be doing.
It's what we ought to be doing. I walked away with a smile. My head hung a little bit low. But I had a smile on my face. But yeah, it makes it work. So it's not like I feel like I'm giving up anything. I'm feeling like this is going to make us look even greater. Not from a standpoint of, we're doing good for somebody. It's literally going to work. It's going to make the management of the property that much easier and that much better.
Yeah, and as a portfolio manager, the idea is that you are managing someone's investment. Mm-hmm. And the best mm-hmm. thing for this person's investment mm-hmm. is for Vicky.
Yep.
Is for Vicky to continue to play a role.
Yes.
In that person's investment.
Yes, exactly. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but now that it's kind of sunken in, because that was a great question. I think part of it might be because I'm an investor myself. And so I always have that investor's hat on. What would I, and honestly, I think that helps out a lot. I always approach tough situations from the owner standpoint as well as the tenants. But, all right, so if I'm an owner, what would I like to see happen? Is this fair? Is this right? Can I hold the property management company accountable for this? Is there something I could have done differently? So, and the cool thing about it is, because I am an investor and now, my company manages my property. So I literally will get statements that say, you can't do this project now because you don't have this much money in your account because this tenant didn't pay. So, I asked my team, treat me like a real, we're not pulling money out of the account just because we can and I own it. And that's been awesome. And trust me, they don't let me. So Tasia will not have it. So, yeah. And
if for those of you who don't know or just new to Sirculate, the quote Byron said is what we ought to be doing. It's something that Rich Clark brought up in his first episode on Sirculate. And it's what was told to him when he was faced with a decision rather to leave St. Ignatius or go start St. Martin de Porres High School, which is the high school that I went to and Byron also worked at. So, and when faced with the question, should he be starting a school in the inner city, to Rich was asking his boss at the time this question, and Rich's boss told him, you know what, it's what we ought to be doing. So it's a concept that just makes sense when you hear it, and it's also something I think it's like that thing on your shoulder that's telling you to do the right thing that everyone doesn't always answer to.
And honestly, Gary, and before I say this, I want to preface this by saying, it's not a dark and gloomy industry or anything like that. But, in terms of like real estate investment, there are a lot of sharks out here. It's definitely, some deep sea stuff that goes on. And so to be, kind of that breath of fresh air, what have you, just doing the right thing. Like, and it's such a small circle, at least in kind of the Northeast Ohio world, that reputation, good or bad, is going to catch up with you and is going to follow you. So literally just do the right thing. And again, I've screwed up a lot, so I'm not trying to say that I'm a saint or anything, but I do try to follow that. And again, it's if you don't have to struggle with that, and if like when I literally walked out there, I'm like, this is what I should be doing, that's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. Why would you not go with it?
So if we continue on this theme of it's what we ought to be doing. Mm-hmm. What are some things within your business that you want to have that don't exist yet, but that you want to be able to provide, whether it be to the tenants or to the owners, to bolster your service?
Mm-hmm. Well, just from a practical standpoint, I'd love to start. We need to get our newsletter going for the tenants and for the owners. Again, you're going to hear this so many times, you're going to get sick of it, but just to communicate. Owners will be very upset, and, everything could be going fine with their property. Like, they're getting their payments and everything, but one of the biggest things they might say is, well, I don't ever hear from anybody. So, and I get it. You're literally in Denmark or Iowa, and, you own a property in Cleveland or Columbus, and you don't know what's going on. So you just want to hear, like, hey, Gary, I know you got your payment, but just want to let you know everything's going around. This maintenance situation was taken care of. So that is something that I would like to do, that we have to implement. Getting more feedback. We want to do probably a biannual survey. We need, constant feedback to see how we're improving. And then from the tenant standpoint, I think it's more, branding, if you will. Like, I believe, we can get our name out there to let them know a little bit more about who we are and other services that we can provide for them, whether that be, we can start getting into credit repair, and which I'm sure some other companies do that, but just other, subsidized services that we can offer just to help out their lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So that's going to happen, very soon. That's on the horizon. It's just, getting all the pieces in place to do that. But that's something that I would really like to do, just to make it, just so that it's not so just, transactional, if that's the right word to use. Mm-hmm. Just, you pay your rent, and you're only going to hear from me, if you don't pay your rent, and then it's going to be a notice on your door saying that we're threatening you to leave. No. How about we say, hey, it's your birthday? Simple things, which through our software that we can do. Hey, you've paid your rent on time for 11 months. Now you're entered into a raffle, so where you can get 50% off or rent free, and Monument will take care of it. And, you just add it in as expense. But think about how that might resonate with somebody that's doing a great job. So, it's all those little things that we can it stops becoming about making as much money as you can, and it starts becoming a little bit more about the impact that you can have and the presence that you can bring to an entire industry.
You may not remember this, but when we first talked, you suggested to people, as an investor, you thought you did that right away. You were into buying people gift baskets and all this stuff, and you realized that it was more so about making sure the maintenance and things they needed were handled.
And that's still number one.
But it's interesting and it's refreshing to hear you say, well, that part of me is still in me, but I needed to, or I wanted to make sure I needed to do the job first, but I'm still want to get back to that a little bit.
I couldn't have said it any better than that. And the beautiful part about it is that it's not...
You still seem grateful.
Oh, absolutely. And I still am not that far detached from visiting tenants and going to their house and seeing these great people and, you know, I can still smell the food when people are cooking and you go into their house. And I'm not joking, you know what I mean? And just the pictures and, it's just, I know it. And I know from, the owner standpoint of believe it or not, 90% of our owners, they want to do very well by the tenants, almost to the point where we sometimes say, hey, I've been there before. You don't need to give an entire gift basket when they first moved in, so I'm speaking from experience, but yes, you still have to do the right thing. And, the difference is it's not Byron, the owner of the house, showing up at the door and trying to give you a gift now. It's just a company culture, which, is no different than any other company. So it's less personal, but it's still appreciated.
Mm-hmm. I know we talked about your company culture, which is something that you have a good feel for, it seems like, but you don't really have articulating it perfectly for everyone. You're almost, I hate this, but like sometimes you need that corny sentence that everyone resonates with. Yeah. Are you there yet, or are you?
No.
And that's something you're trying to get to as well,
yeah,
right?
It's actually, be honest with you, it's a disappointment right now. Let's just be honest. And I say that because in my crazy mind, it's easy for me to be myself because I'm the owner. So whatever I kind of want to do or want to say or how I want to do it is fine, and everybody can go with it. But what does that mean, and how does that resonate when you have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people that work with you? And so what I mean by that is trying to develop a culture where it's, I've said this before, and I don't know if this is the right term either, but like hip hop, it's cool, it's fun, it's provocative, but it's also business oriented,
and it's virtual.
And it's virtual, yeah. And the company is virtual. So do you understand what I'm saying? Like, it's been a task to create a culture where everybody's working from home. We don't, nobody's sitting in front of you and standing over you and watching what you're doing, but everybody's held accountable. And, this is a company where a lot of us work way past 5 and get up way before 9, and emails are coming and going all the time, and it's crazy. So
let's dive deeper on this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started my episode 1, it's called Start With Why, and it's me by myself,
mm-hmm.
and it's talking about why I started Sirculate and this mission I'm on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully, more people, through talking to guys like yourself and Rich and Tiffany and other people I'll add, hopefully more and more people get attached to this mission, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at Rich's mission of, which we know, right? His mission is longer in the tooth, but
mm-hmm.
transforming urban Cleveland one student at a time. That mission, those words weren't formed when the school first started.
Mm-hmm.
It was just being executed. The mission was just being executed, and then it was like, all right, now we have our sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they happened, I don't remember what year it happened, but I know those weren't the words at the beginning. And he talked about that in an episode as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I say that to say, cut yourself a little slack, where it is disappointing, I get it, but I think when you have people working from way before 9 and after 5,
mm-hmm.
and you have people all on board, you know what this sounds like?
Mm-hmm.
This sounds like St. Martin's early days.
Mm-hmm.
Where people were working, Rich jokes about, we're not open for Christmas, and then he comes in on Christmas, and him and he's there, Marianne there,
and Tom
there.
I was probably there too, so yeah.
Right, so, but that's, I shouldn't say but hearing you say that, I hear the parallels in his stories.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the points to Sirculate. It's like making sure people are like not in isolation when they're talking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I think any entrepreneur will tell you, it's kind of the gift and the curse. Like right now, Gary, yeah, and I use the word disappointed because I have this, and again, I'm assuming most entrepreneurs have this. I have a very, very clear, vivid image of how this company should be, what we should be doing, numbers wise, what it should look like. It is clear. It is a divine gift.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm supposed to be doing this. So that's where, and I've always been an impatient person, but that's where the frustration and the disappointment, if you will, comes in, because like, I will totally forget that this is, 2 years or less in existence, but I know it and I feel it in my veins. And so it's a difficult thing to deal with. And again, I'm sure most business owners will tell you that they know they know what that hardware store is supposed to look like. They know what musicians know what it's supposed to sound like in their head. And
that is hilarious.
Yeah, but so
this hasn't come out yet, but I just did episode 3 with Rich, and he talks about his weaknesses.
Yeah, and
one of the weaknesses he brings up is he's like, Gary, I did a test. There's only 2% of people in the world that are more impatient than me. You bring up very impatient.
Yeah.
Right? It's funny how there's and then I know myself, I'm not that impatient as well. I don't know if I'm as impatient as Rich, but the correlations between people is amazing. Like, for example, Tiffany might not say she's as impatient, but I see a correlation in you and in Rich and in Tiffany it's the self-awareness thing, which, again, is like Rich, he, at the end of episode 3, he's talking about how my strengths and my weaknesses, and how the way God works is that your weaknesses are your strengths in God's hands. So his example was when they were writing the story about the Cristo Rey network and what should it be? Should it be this or should it be that? He was being a wise ass and told the guy, Jesus, by the time we finish this report, I could have started a school in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And his response was, why don't you?
Yeah.
So that's his weakness of impatience. God screaming back at him, why don't you? And then his other weakness is being overly confident. Well, why don't I? Your weaknesses are your strengths in God's hands. So you being impatient about, I want to be able to execute and like
on a high level and be able to speak to this mission and the things that I want my business to have in a better way. It's just another example of, I think, your weakness is your strength in God's hands. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. But you see, by having these conversations now, I can kind of hear and diagnose things where it's like, now something I talked to with Tiffany, who her episode is coming out before yours, but her most recent episode, she was talking about how when she does her yoga, she can only do it, or when she does her yoga and her wellness practices, sometimes she has to let her clients know, today's not a good day. Like, I need to do, I'm better off doing this for you when my cup is full, when I can kind of give to you. Yeah. And now this is an example of where I'm like, wow, me connecting all these things between all of y'all is filling up my cup. And I think we all have, if you look at it, look at Rich, everybody is dedicated to some level of service. You know what I mean? That is true. Yeah. It's Rich, Tiffany, and myself. We're all we're all in the service industry, and we get a lot of joy out of that. You know what I mean? And that's keeps you motivated, keeps you pumped, like just to affect other people's lives in a positive way. I'll say it again. Money is great. Don't get me wrong. Anybody that knows me knows that is a big goal of mine. However, it gets to a point where it's like, I can impact something greater than this. And I'm sure, again, I know Tiffany feels that way. I know Rich feels that way. And, that's where, I guess kind of bringing this full circle is that's where you kind of let go and let God, like they say. And, just go from there. So to get back to the improvements that you want to make within your business and understanding why you want to make them, where do you think those improvements can be made internally, or are you kind of at the point where you need to go outside of your company to kind of have somebody look down at your company and say, this is what I see from the outside looking in, Byron? I think it's both. I'm glad you asked that, because it's something that we've kind of tossed around a little bit. And, having a consultant, if you will, kind of come in and say, okay, hey, here, where are some areas that we can improve? Here's some of our goals. But also relying on our core, our core executive team to say, okay, because, again, we're all the good thing is that we know our strengths and weaknesses as well, and we don't avoid it, and we don't, we're not naive to it. So there you go. All right. Episode 3 with Byron. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. Please feel free to share the show on all your social media accounts and websites, or email friends or any family that you know that might be interested in the story. Please also go to
YouTube, iTunes, and other places that subscribe to the show. That would be a big help and helps us get the word out as well. Some other ways you can support the show is by signing up for a Patreon account that supports the show directly. If you go to patreon.com/circulate, there's also a support under the support tab on our website. It'll direct you to the Patreon account. Also, there's a PayPal account that people can make one-time donations. And also on our website, there's a apparel that you can purchase under the shop tab. And in general, I just hope you keep coming back and keep listening. Thank you. See you soon.